Good morning, I'm Gretchen Ho. We're coming to you on the 23rd day of December. It is a Tuesday, bringing you Morning Matters because your mornings matters. Get to the stories that matter today. Authorities are collecting every piece of evidence connected to Maria Catalina Cabral amid the ongoing flood control investigation. Meanwhile, Leandro Leviste claims her records expose cabinet officials and private individuals who should not be involved in public works. The 2026 national budget ratification has been pushed back to December 29, and Senate President Tito Soto raised the possibility of a reenacted budget for the early part of 2026. And the High Court upheld the reclusión perpetua sentence for 3 police officers responsible for the death of 17-year-old Kian de los Santos. Judges confirmed that they are guilty beyond reasonable doubt for the 2017 murder. Welcome to our program, Morning Matters, where we talk about the issues you need to know for the rest of your day. Now, first in the agenda, authorities are rushing to secure all possible evidence that former Public Works Undersecretary Maria Catalina Cabral could have left in connection with the flood control scandal. More in this report.
The Office of the Ombudsman has ordered the Department of Public Works and Highways to immediately produce all gadgets, computers, and other electronic devices previously issued to resign Undersecretary Maria Catalina Cabral. The Ombudsman says that, quote, upon turnover, these devices will be subjected to forensic examination by a law enforcement agency to determine whether any data was altered, deleted, or tampered with after the flood control scandal was first made public. But what if the pieces of evidence were indeed altered? According to Assistant Ombudsman Mico Clavano, these will be subjected to further forensics. After all, these information usually leave a trace even after deletion. Meanwhile, Batangas 1st District Representative Leandro Leviste claims he is in possession of documents from Cabral herself. These contain proponents of DPWH projects, which included names of congressmen and senators. But what bewilders the neophyte lawmaker is that there are cabinet members and private individuals in the list who, to his knowledge, should have no hand in public works projects. Leviste insisted that the documents he has are legitimate and even bears Cabral's handwritten notes pertaining to the project status and approving authority.
Si Yusek Cabral ang gumagawa ng budget. Ang question lang ay sino nang bibigay sa kanya ng mga instruction. Nandito po sa listahan, meron column on handwritten notes. Napaka-comprehensive talaga ng files ni Yusek Cabral. Pati yung mga handwritten notes, ginagawa niyang soft copy. At nakalagay dito sa mga handwritten notes, puro mga SMB for evaluation, SMB recommended. At I guess we can surmise that SMB is Secretary Manny Bonoan.
When asked to make public the documents, here's Leviste's answer.
I would prefer that DPWH be the one to release it. At maganda pag isa publiko, pwedeng opisyal para walang mag-question ng authenticity. At may paliwanag din ang DPWH sa laman nito. At sana kompleto din. At kung may mas marami pang files na makalap sila sa opisina ni Yusek Cabral, isabay-sabay na nilang ipakita ang full picture.
Leviste also denied reports he forcefully obtained the documents from Cabral, wrestling it out of the former DPWH Yusek's hands in one instance.
Ibinigay po ito sa akin noong September 4 at si Secretary Dizon po ang pwedeng magpaliwanag kung talagang hindi naman voluntary ang pagbisita po sa DPWH kasi alam naman po nilang lahat na may meeting po ako doon at tawag po si Secretary Dizon na pwedeng ibigay sa akin ang mga files. Through Director Alex Bote, ako nag-set ng meeting. Nandun din pa po sa DPWH si Director Alex Bote. At mahalaga po na maprotektahan natin lahat ng mga files na nasa opisina ng planning services ng DPWH.
Another lawmaker who claims to be in possession of documents from Cabral is Senate Blue Ribbon Committee Chair Panfilo Lacson. Senator Lacson, however, cannot confirm if he and Leviste have the same documents. All he can say for now is, quote, I'm glad that there is a Congressman Leandro Leviste who I think is hardworking enough to secure material documents that may help shed light on the ongoing investigations. For now, Lacson says he'd rather give the Cabral family time to grieve since authorities can still act on the files at the proper time and venue.
Sally Santos, owner of Sims Construction Trading, returned 15 million pesos to the government on Monday. Justice Department spokesperson Polo Martinez said the payment is part of Santos's partial restitution under her memorandum of agreement. Santos admitted delivering about 245 million pesos in cash to a Department of Public Works and Highways office in a single day and possibly up to 1 billion pesos from 2022 to the present. However, she denied knowing that the funds would be used for anomalous projects. Senate President Tito Soto floated the possibility of the government operating on a reenacted budget for the beginning of 2026. Here is a report.
The ratification of the 2026 General Appropriations Act has been moved to December 29. The Senate and the House Representatives were scheduled to approve the reconciled spending plan on Monday. Senate President Tito Soto says the delay gives lawmakers a chance to formally approve the final bill itself, rather than just a summary of the bicameral report.
Ayoko nung summary. Ayoko ng blind ratification katulad na nangyari last year. As far as I'm concerned, basta while I'm Senate President, gusto ko malinaw. Ang niraratify namin, malinaw na. Almost enrolled copy or enrolled copy na papuntang Presidente.
What are the chances?
Kaya para malinis na malinis yun at walang insertion whatsoever.
The big question now is there enough time to avoid reenacted budget? Lawmakers assure the public there will be no reenacted budget for 2026. If ratified on December 29, the final enrolled budget will be immediately sent to Malacanang for approval. President Bongbong Marcos is expected to sign it in the same day, provided the palace has completed its review. Soto, however, cautions that if the president needs more time, the signing could be pushed to early January, potentially triggering a temporary enacted budget.
If they have started reviewing it from now up to that time, there is a possibility, but I doubt it. I doubt it. Perhaps somewhere like sometime like the first week of January would be ideal na review na nila yun.
So possible reenacted for a few days?
Yeah, kung ganun lang naman, walang problema because diba the last time, meron pa kaming 3 months na reenacted.
Meanwhile, before suspending yesterday's sessions, House Speaker Boji D praised the House bicameral panel for delivering a 2026 budget-free insertions.
Sa inyong pamumuno at tiyaga, nakapagtapos tayo ng budget na maaaring pagkatiwalaan ng taong bayan. Isang budget na walang insertions, na hindi itinago, hindi minadali, kundi bukas sa mata ng publiko. This budget is historic, not only because the process was transparent, but because the priorities were very clear. It is a budget shaped by love for the country, a deep understanding of our people's realities, and genuine compassion for our kababayan.
Plunder and graft charges have been filed against Executive Secretary Ralph Recto and former PhilHealth President Emmanuel Ledesma. This is in connection with the transfer of 60 billion pesos in PhilHealth funds to the National Treasury. The complaint filed before the Office of the Ombudsman claims the transfer violated laws protecting PhilHealth reserve funds. Now, earlier this month, the Supreme Court ordered the return of the funds and permanently barred further transfers. Coming right up, lawmakers granted themselves an extra day to scrutinize the 2026 National Budget Bicameral Report. We'll be joined by Representative Antonio Tinio to break that down and what this means. After a quick break, keep it here in One News. Good morning, Gretchen Ho here in Morning Matters. We talk about the most pressing issues and give the context behind the headlines. The House of Representatives has extended its session calendar to give lawmakers a one-day window to review the Bicameral Conference Committee report on the 2026 national budget. Sessions will resume on December 29 when the report is set for ratification. Lawmakers are expected to receive copies of the BICAM report on December 28. Some House members raised concerns over the limited review time, citing past issues with last-minute budget insertions. Now, once ratified, President Marcos will have 2 days to veto items or sign the 6.79 trillion 2026 budget into law. Joining us today, we have ACT Teachers Party List Representative Antonio Tinio, one of the lawmakers raising concerns over the limited review period for the 2026 National Budget Bicameral Report. Magandang umaga. Welcome back to the show.
Hi, good morning, Gretchen.
Okay, Congressman, unang-una, simulan natin dun sa speech ni House Speaker Boji D. Ang sabi niya, this budget is historic because it has no insertions and the priorities were very clear. Would you agree with that assessment?
Well, perhaps, walang insertions. For sure, there have been amendments made.
Looks like we're
The
having
point is
some...
there have been changes.
Looks like we're having some difficulty with the signal, Congressman. Will take some time to fix the connection. And we'll get back to Congressman Antonio Tinio from ACT Teachers Party List. Stay tuned. Morning Matters will be back after a quick break. Keep it here. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters. Joining us on the show this morning, we have ACT Teachers Party List Representative Antonio Tinio. Congressman, do you hear us now?
Yes, I hear you. Good morning.
Very good. A good connection there. Okay. All right. Let's go back to my first question, which was on the speech of House Speaker Boji D. He said this budget is historic because it has no insertions and that the priorities were very clear. Do you share the same assessment?
For sure, there have been, as with other budgets, there have been amendments made by the BICAM compared to the versions passed by the House and the Senate. So, we can argue about whether those are insertions or not, but definitely the BICAM made changes to the budget. As to the priorities, they said the priorities were, education. Mainly, it was education. Perhaps this is true. I mean, it's certainly true that the education budget is higher in terms of percentage than the previous year's budget. So there have been some changes. The promise was also that the process would be transparent. And as far as that's concerned, there was a live streaming of the formal sessions of the BICAM. However, it's also clear that off camera there were discussions, closed door meetings to hammer out the obvious disagreements between the House and Senate panels. So we cannot say that the budget has been 100% transparent.
And over the 5 days across 4 hearings, there were many delays. There was even a deadlock. At doon nga natin nakita yung mga sinasabi po ninyo na pag-uusap on the sidelines. Parang sa mga diplomatic conference na may usapin sa tabi with the leaders negotiating, no? But there were several items in the budget that were the most contentious. Isa dito yung DPWH budget, kung saan nakita pa natin Secretary Vince Dizon. The other was the MAIFIP program under the Department of Health. Watching through the live stream, do you think these matters were settled in haste, or were they actually settled at all?
Well, they were settled, but not in the way that we or the public would have hoped for. So, for example, in the case of the IFIP or the medical assistance budget, um, I mean, a lot of the noise was made, particularly by the Senate, that this should change, that medical assistance should not have to go through politicians anymore, that we should put an end to political patronage. Um, but in the end, the budget for MAIFIP and for other um, social welfare assistance and scholarships, those budgets were even increased. So instead of reducing that amount or transferring the amount to the institutions themselves, the budgets were in fact slightly increased. Like I think the budget for medical assistance was increased by something like 2 billion to is it 48 billion, something like that.
Yung for MAIFIP, I actually have the numbers here, no? For MAIFIP, it was 41 billion in the House, 29 billion in the Senate, and then 51 billion at the BICAM compared to 42 billion from last year. Tapos ang AIX naman, 26 billion yan sa NEP, 59 billion in the House, reduced to 34 billion at the Senate, and then brought back up higher, way higher than any chamber at 63.9 billion. So perhaps when the House Speaker said there were no insertions, siguro ang sinabi niya, walang siningit. Everything happening in broad daylight. Parang siguro po gano'n. No? I mean, walang small committee that suddenly inserted the figure there.
Yeah, but as I said, they made amendments, no, including these increases to the medical assistance, to ayuda, that's the DSWD budget, to the tulong-dulong, that's for scholarships, and to PAD, I think that's the DOLE budget for temporary employment. These are the traditional. Well, they used to be called soft pork, meaning to say they're part of the political patronage, funds for political patronage, social welfare, or social services being turned into political patronage.
Congressman, do you think there's really no room for the MAIFIP? Kasi ang sinabi ho ng ating mga lawmakers, si Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, sabi niya, the money will be needed from the MAIFIP to cover the cost that is not shouldered by PhilHealth sa private hospitals. Kasi kung 300% na ang pasyente, ang kumbaga parang more than exceeding capacity na sa mga local government hospitals pati sa public hospitals, lumilipat yung mga pasyente sa private. Tapos 40% lang kinocover ng PhilHealth at sabi nga po ni Senator Sherwin, kailangan yung the rest from MAIFIP. And also, Senator Tito Soto echoed the same thing. This fund is to decongest our public hospitals. But on the other hand, nakausap namin si Department of Health ASEC Albert Domingo. Sabi naman niya, they're requesting for the MAIFIP to be downloaded to the LG hospitals for the zero balance billing. So, anong nalalaman po ninyo dito tungkol sa MAIFIP and how this goes through the system? And is there no rationale for the MAIFIP's existence?
Well, in fact, there could be several ways that this could be handled. It's true that because of the zero balance policy now, most patients in public hospitals, especially in the wards, they receive treatment for free. At least inpatient individuals get free treatment, zero balance nga. So the MAIFIP is really for the hospital director told me this. The MyFIP is now mainly for lower middle income patients needing assistance. Okay, whether it's in public hospitals or in private hospitals. Okay, but so there are several ways that can be handled. One is the DOH position, which is that these additional funds should be realigned to local government unit hospitals, second and third tier hospitals, um, so that these could be used so that the zero balance program can be expanded to LGU hospitals. The other is, it's true, I mean, there are patients that cannot be accommodated at this point in public hospitals, so they go to private hospitals. So, the MyFIP is used for that, but um, we don't have to let it go through the guarantee letter system with legislators. No, so that can be directly handled, for example, by the DOH itself. So, I mean, it's a matter of removing political patronage from the process. But right now, there is an informal but long-standing process where there are allocations of the MAIFIP per legislator, and there's a system where the legislator contacts a point person in the DOH, and then a code is issued, and then a guarantee letter
So,
is issued.
so kayo ho, may
that can be
ganun din
done
ho
away
kayo?
with.
May allocation din ho kayo ng MAIFIP.
Meron.
Oh, so hindi pa
Lahat ng
matatanggal
legislator.
yan kahit, kasi sinasabi ho ng DOH na hindi naman daw kailangan ng guarantee letter. Kumbaga, sinasama na lang yan, kinakabit na lang doon sa main form, form from DOH. So it's actually not part of the process anymore.
Well, maybe they say that, but there is still an standing process where legislators recommend, including, how much to give, and the DOH keeps a running tally of the funds available per legislator.
Okay. Basically, alam ho natin, ayuda it's not just the MAIFIP but also the AICS at nabanggit po nga yung mga social welfare programs. Sabi po ng mga lawmakers po natin doon ay lalagyan na lang ng proper safeguards. Yung AICS na justify ho yan by Senator Erwin Tulfo, who said na nung DSW Secretary siya naubusan daw ng pondo by October or November. Which begs the question, sabi po niya, dun sa Quick Response Fund, nagkaroon pa ng delay. Pero hindi ba nature ng Quick Response Fund ay quick nga? So I'm a little bit confused over why it's so hard to institutionalize, or why is sinasabi po ni Senator Erwin na kung kukuha pa sa QRF ay matagal. Or is this just an excuse to increase the budget of AICS? Are you satisfied, in short, with the safeguards that have been put in alongside all of these aid programs?
Well, again, there is an informal system in place that was first set up during the Aquino administration during the time of Noynoy Aquino. Immediately after the pork barrel decision came out, the Supreme Court declared that pork barrel is unconstitutional. So they set up this informal system where the Aquino administration assured legislators, don't worry, your pork barrel is still there. We have this informal agreement. And that system has been in place since then. This is also the reason why, for example, former Secretary Judith Tagiwalo of the DSWD was removed, was not confirmed. This was the issue. She was trying to implement the AICS without the allocations of legislators, and the legislators didn't like that, so she was not confirmed after 1 year in position.
Oh, okay.
So, so the system is still very much in place, and it. I mean, uh, Senator Tulfo is saying, it should be the QRF, but it takes longer and so on and so forth. I mean, these are all just internal systems of the DSWG. They can do something about it if they want to. But right now, they're choosing to maintain the system of we used to call this hidden pork barrel, which is still very much alive. No, and I mean the BICAM has promised that there will be special provisions in the 2026 budget that will explicitly prevent this. So let's wait and see. We have not seen these actual special provisions.
Sabi nga nila, old habits die hard. Apart from the MAIFIP and the AX part of the DPWH budget also, and the unprogrammed appropriations that was given around 243 billion. No? There was a PCIJ report that said that this was used in the past to fund flood control projects in 23 and 2024. About 230, or rather, flood control ate up half of the unprogrammed funds in those years. No, so in the 1 day that you have now to review the BICAM report, what can be done exactly? Can you bring those issues up?
Well, the ratification is a very simple process. There will be an ayes and nays vote. So that's all, a viva voce voting. It's not individual voting. So there's really no opportunity to make any more amendments. So at most, we will have an opportunity to explain our votes. So that's all we can do. And the 1 day that was promised us that they would give the complete BICAM documents a day before the ratification vote gives us more or less 1 day to study. Obviously, it's really not ideal, but we'll do our best with that time. Let me add, with regard to the DPWH budget, so in the end, something like another 20 plus billion was removed from the DPWH budget. So that would mean that some of that affects some of the allocations for infrastructure projects to legislators. No? However, we have pointed out that there was an increase of 17.8 billion for the local government support fund. No, so that's part of the special purpose fund, the lump sum funds in the budget. So I would say that this can take the place of the allocations that were reduced from the DPWH budget, because essentially these are allocations to local government units, and they can be used for infrastructure projects, your usual roads, bridges, and multipurpose buildings, as well as for ayuda, no, the ones that we were talking about earlier. So, in other words, tinanggal sa DPWH pero nilagay lang sa ibang item in the budget. So, ganun yung nangyari. As to unprogrammed appropriations, our position has always been that these are in fact unconstitutional. Wala sa Constitution yung unprogrammed appropriations. No, this was an innovation, supposedly first introduced during the Marcos dictatorship. No, giving essentially it's standby appropriations. Congress is giving the executive advance authorization to use funds that are not yet available. These are for additional or excess revenues. Okay, so these are advance appropriations, and they're very flexible, and a lot of this discretion is given to the president in the use of these unprogrammed appropriations. And in the past few years, they were, as you mentioned, in fact, used to fund a lot of additional, thousands of additional infrastructure projects, including flood control projects. So it's still there. The unprogrammed appropriations, unfortunately, are still there. Parang dinagdagan pa yata sa halip na bawasan. So, I mean, that seems to be the trend in this BICAM. Is a lot of noise is made about the bad things that were done in the past. But in the end, instead of radically changing or removing some of these items, dinagdagan pa nga. Ganyan yung nangyari.
That much is very clear, especially with the aid programs. And we'll see what happens to the budget when we get to December 28 and 29. In the meantime, maraming salamat for joining us and weighing in on the latest with the budget process. We have ACT Teachers Party List Representative Antonio Tinio.
Thank you, Gretchen. Morning.
Up next, the government is moving to pursue civil forfeiture proceedings against the properties of former DPWH Undersecretary Maria Catalina Cabral. Let's discuss that with Attorney Paulo Tamase when Morning Matters returns after a quick break. Keep it here. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here in One News. Attorney Paulo Tamase, assistant professor at the UP Diliman College of Law, said the Office of the Ombudsman and the Justice Department must carefully map out their next steps in pursuing a civil forfeiture case against the estate of former DPWH Undersecretary Maria Catalina Cabral. In an interview, Tamase said that while criminal cases typically result in imprisonment or fines, they also carry civil liabilities such as the payment of damages or the forfeiture of unlawfully acquired assets. He noted that cases filed before the Sandigan Bayan usually involve both criminal and civil aspects, which can become legally complex when the accused has already died. With Cabral's passing, a criminal case can no longer move forward, requiring any civil claims to be pursued separately. And joining us now, we have Attorney Paulo Tamase, Assistant Professor at UP Diliman College of Law. Magandang umaga po. Welcome back to Morning Matters.
Good morning, Gretchen, and to your viewers.
Okay, una-una, there are many speculations over what happened to Yusek Cabral. As a lawyer, what aspects in her death were questionable to you?
Well, I've just read reports on the death of Yusek Cabral, no? And I think I really haven't formed an opinion yet on whether there's foul play involved or whether it was self-harm, as some have suggested. The point in the final analysis is that this kind of complicates the litigation surrounding the forfeiture of her any illegally acquired wealth on her part, no? And of course the cases that will be filed against other DPWH officials.
Okay, there are several angles to this, the way she died, as you mentioned, the handling of the police, the pronouncements of the DILG. But looking at how this was dealt with, kung maalala ko, tinanggal yung mga police ng Tuba Benguet, kasi hindi nila tinuring na crime scene. Yun nangyari, kaya na-i-hand over yung personal effects ni Cabral sa pamilya. Should it be considered a crime scene? Paano yung decision-making doon? I mean, what are the elements that immediately say na put it in that category?
Well, under Philippine law, we really don't have good regulations concerning what we would call suspicious deaths in other. That's a problem. So in other jurisdictions in the US, for example, if there's a death that is suspicious because of the age of who is involved or the circumstances of the person who died, there is automatically, a crime scene, or the police automatically treat it as a crime scene by law. And advocates from both the medical and the legal side have been pushing for that for a few decades already. So there needs to be some legal reform there. But as to current regulations, wala din kasi talaga. We really don't have any guidelines on whether something is to be treated as a crime scene or not. A lot of it rests on the discretion of the police.
Secretary John Vic Remulla has apparently almost ruled out foul play, saying her injuries were consistent with a fall. Do you think that's enough to rule out foul play? Or is this a little bit premature?
I honestly think it's a bit premature. The circumstances of any death like this, given how there was a remote location, this was far from the usual residence, there was nothing to indicate that Yusek Cabral was sick, etc. They should call for a little more in introspection and circumspection. And a proper investigation. So ayun nga, but without a law that actually requires that from police authorities, a lot of it is passed on to the discretion of our justice and law enforcement officials.
And of course, the public is relying on just statements coming out of what happened over in Benguet, no? Sabi ng DILG, nakita na nila yung autopsy, confirming that this was Yusek Catalina Cabral. But how could the public verify? What can the public do to get to the truth? Posible bang ma-release yun? O talagang violation yan ng data privacy pag hindi pinayagan ng pamilya? Knowing that this is a public case of public interest.
With all due, with due regard and respect for, of course, the grief of the family, I think despite it being a death and a tragic death at that, the public does have the right to know the information on Yusek Cabral's death. She would have been a critical witness or a critical cog in the investigation concerning the flood control issue. And therefore, her death and the circumstances of her death really become of public interest, which the people constitutionally have a right to. So they can, of course, or the proper civil society group can make the proper request with the DILG to release those autopsy findings or the findings of the police. But ultimately, if the DILG refuses or the family refuses, then it will have to go to court. The proper party will file a petition for mandamus, and the proper party can be any citizen in that case. So you can imagine again how long that will take. But it's important, right? I think
to verify the identity at least.
The identity and the circumstances, right? I mean, the immediate reaction from people after it happened was, is there going to be a hunt, or sunod-sunod ba yung mawawala? And I think while thankfully that hasn't happened, and according to the DILG, there was no foul play involved. The people do have a right to know, because of how important Yusek Cabral was and how important the flood control issue is.
And let's go to what you said about her death complicating any seizure of her assets. What does that change here in this whole equation? Ano yung pwedeng habulin ng taong bayan sa ngayon? Una-una, sa ari-arian. Pangalawa, sa impormasyon.
So, let's go to the assets first. No? If Yusek Cabral did acquire illegally wealth because of her involvement in the flood control issue, then the people do have a right to that. To the properties that were acquired because of it, or to the equivalent amount of it. Now, normally, yung properties na yun, pwede yun kunin dapat doon sa criminal case na iyahain laban kay Yusek Cabral. But dahil namatay na siya, hindi na pwede mahain yung criminal case na yun. But hindi din malinaw under our current law, therefore, where you go next. What is clear is that the people through the Republic will have a right to forfeiture. Where you file that case, who files it is the bigger question. Because if you look at the history, the background of graft investigations in the country, usually our authorities stop at the criminal aspect. Hindi natin usually tinutulak dun sa civil aspect or the forfeiture aspect. So just broadly outlining it, there's an action under 1379, what we call the Forfeiture Act. If the government decides to pursue that, that will be filed with the Sandigan Bayan. But if hindi yun yung gagamitin because hindi naman malinaw, no, whether she was amassing wealth beyond her lawful income, then any civil action may have to be filed with the regular courts, and it won't be by the Ombudsman or the DOJ. It will be with the Solicitor General. So I'm sure, and I hope that the Ombudsman, the DOJ, and even the Solicitor General are looking closely into this. It's not. These are old laws, no, but hindi natin kasi nagagamit because we really don't go after as a system yung civil forfeiture. Hindi tayo magaling maghabol usually nung assets that have been already illegally taken. On the investigation, no, and the cases that will be filed against other officials, of course, Yusek Cabral was an important part of allegedly of this whole system. But hindi naman cause for despair, no? Marami namang other avenues where the government can still get the necessary evidence if the flood control issue was documented and there are available documentary evidence, as long as may witness na makapagpapatunay na totoo yung mga dokumento, na authentic yung mga dokumento na iyahain, or merong alternative na oral testimony to support those documents, then they should be fine. No, they wouldn't really result in the dismissal of the cases against the DPWH officials.
Oo, yun nga yung tinatanong ni Congressman Terry Redon, ano, para malalaman kung tunay na yung, kung nakakuha man ng listahan ng mga allocables from her office, sino magpapatunay, yun nga yung tanong. But it's good to know that not all is lost, but matatagalan lang dun sa mga kailangan makuha. Okay, maraming salamat. Thank you so much for your time today and insights. We have Attorney Paulo Tamase, Assistant Professor at UP Diliman College of Law.
Thank you, Gretchen.
Baguio City Mayor Benjamin Magalong says the last stop of former DPWH Undersecretary Cabral was a rock netting project site along Cannon Road that is now under investigation. Let's discuss this further with Mayor Benjamin Magalong, who joins us on the show today. Magandang umaga. Welcome to Morning Matters.
Good morning, Gretchen. Good morning to our listeners and viewers.
Okay, una-una ho, sabi niyo nga, no, ito po ay yung kanyang kung saan po siya nahulog, allegedly, ito po ay under investigation na site. Tama ho ba?
Yes, it's still considered as a crime scene. Naka-isolated pa rin siya as a crime scene.
Oo. So ano po ang tingin niyo pong nangyari? What do we know about why this location was chosen by the USEC?
I don't really have any idea. No? Maraming mga speculations, maraming intrigues, maraming nagbabanggit na tinitingnan niya yung mga rock netting project. Pero I doubt. Nagkataon lang siguro na napili niya yung Cannon Road. But, and then Star Stretch, marami namang rock netting doon. Siguro nakita rin niya yung mga rock netting projects na yun. There's no way na ma-ignore mo yung rock netting kasi napakarami.
Oo. Ito ho ba yung nilakaran po ninyo with Secretary Vince Dizon?
Negative.
And the President?
Yan yung pinuntahan namin ni Presidente. Presidente
that exact site. Oo.
Yeah, malapit doon, mga 1 kilometer going down to Manila. Yung site na binisita namin ni Presidente, most probably around 1 kilometer pa going down to Manila.
Oo. Sa inyo pong pagtatanong, ano po ang nakikita niyo mga interesting na mga detalye dito? For example, we're seeing now photos of the driver taking a selfie with the USEC. Ilang beses po sila nagbalik dyan sa site na yan. Pangalawa, yung handling po ng police. Sinesante po yung sa mga taga-tuba, inilipat sila kasi hindi po nila itinuring itong crime scene. So, as a former policeman, what would you say about the handling and the details surrounding this case? What details were curious to you?
Well, in fairness to the police, Gretchen, maayos naman yung kanilang pagkakaprocess. Isang nakaligtaan. and that is the recovery of the cell phones. But insofar as recovering mga critical items and documents dun sa car, talagang hinalughog nila yung sasakyan eh. Pero ang nakalimutan nilang i-recover yung cellphone, which is actually one essential essential piece of evidence yun.
Oh, so ganun lang ho, nakalimutan lang ho?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
is that a huge
Sabihan.
negligence? Oo.
Actually, ang nangyari, Gretchen, is nasabihan nung provincial director, yung kanyang chief of police, na i-safety. Ibig sabihin, secure yung lahat ng mga pieces of evidence, critical documents. Unfortunately, yung chief of police naman, naging complacent. Hindi niya na-recover yung bag na containing yung device, yung cellphone.
Oo. Pero sa protocol ho, dapat ho ba sinisecure ng police yun?
Yes, dapat lahat yun. Dapat yun. Pati yung mga hawak ng driver, kailangan din secure mo din yan. Pati yung mga cellphones niya, secure mo pa rin.
Oh. So isn't that negligence on the part of the chief of police?
Yes, totally negligence. But insofar as processing yung mismong actual na lugar, nila okay. Doon lang nila nakaligtaan.
Oo. Okay. Mayor, yung marami po nagtatanong kung yung 20 to 30 meters na height po nung kung saan po yung cliff na yon, would it be enough to sustain that kind of injury and trauma to the body of the undersecretary?
Yes, just to give you an idea, i-visualize mo, that's about 10 stories. 10 stories. Natapos yung mga rocks to sa baba are jagged. Maski na bumagsak ka na nakapaa doon malamang siguro critical serious injury ang data mo doon na Gretchen.
Oho. Okay. But this section of the road, wala po bang nagtaka na parang nagsistay ho sila dyan? Kasi it seems to be like cars speeding by that section. Pero may mga katanungan din kung of course may speculation na una-una kung suicide po ito, pangalawa kung may tumulak, what could have been possible at that site given the circumstances surrounding the area itself?
Well, pricing na nung pag-akyat nila ng Baguio, huminto siya doon sa lugar na yon. In fact, kaya sila umalis doon. Matatagal pa sana sila doon Kaya lang umalis sila dahil nakita sila ng mga pulis. And very tight yung section na yun ng road. At hindi ka basta-basta makakapagparada doon. Kaya nasita sila ng pulis. At sinabi sa kanila, you cannot stop here. You have to, proceed. So yung iniwan nila, they have to proceed to the city of Baguio. After that, they came back in the afternoon. Doon na pinaalis yung driver at sinabi niya sa driver, sabi niya doon sa driver, you have to leave kasi sisitayin tayo ng pulis. From that location, kung saan siya tumalon, siguro down the road, meron pang mga bahay, mga 100 meters na makikita. Pero, siyempre, hindi na nila malalaman siguro, hindi na nila siguro na-observe na may tao pala doon. And besides, if you look at the result of the warrant, doon sa room, the search warrant, meron din na-recover na knife doon. And several types of medicines. Mga ganon.
May na-recover ho na knife?
Yes, knife.
Saan ho nakita yung kutsilyo?
Doon sa loob ng room nila sa Ion Hotel or Ion Hotel.
Okay. So, to your expert assessment, what do you think really happened? Was the DILG right to rule out foul play? Ano po ang what questions need to be answered, do you think?
Yeah, may reason siguro, May mga certain information pa siguro na hawak si Secretary Rimulya, kaya niya nasabi yan. But with all the information that I have, hindi pa ako conclusive. Kasi I need to secure yung cellphone. I need to go over the content of the cellphone. Siguro doon ko lang malalaman talaga kung ano talaga ang nangyari. Pero hindi ko alam kung ano yung mga information ni Secretary Lim.
Pero Mayor, pasensya no kung itatanungin ko ito, would you confirm that this was really the Undersecretary, Yusek Catalina Cabral, who died here?
Yes, definitely. There's no doubt about it. Isa yan sa mga tinignan ko mabuti. I made sure na matutuloy yung autopsy. There's no doubt about it. They have all the pieces of evidence that would clearly identify that it's Yusek or Miss Cabral.
What pieces of evidence?
Well, marami silang comparison na ginawa doon sa kaya sasabi talaga nila, there's no doubt about it, it is Yusek Cabral.
Pero hindi nyo personally nakita?
Hindi na.
Okay, let's go to the rock netting project here, kung saan po yung site ng kanyang fall. How critical is this site in the build-up of the case over at the ICI?
Well, I do not really know kung ano yung link nung rock netting. Kasi ang interview lang sa akin sir, yung lugar ba yun may rock netting? Maraming rock netting doon. At yun na yung sinulat ng ating reporter. But I do not really know kung may link sa kanya. But definitely talagang malaki yung halaga. Doon pa lang sa Cannon Road pa lang, 19 billion na ang nagastos. Based on the records that I was able to gather, 19 billion na doon. And about 100 meters before the site of incident, merong mahabang rock netting projects doon.
Okay, Mayor, kayo po you know of the inner workings of the ICI, no? Was there ever an expression that she wanted to become a state witness? Yun po yung sabi ni Congressman De Viste. And how does her death impact all of the investigations? She was a central figure. Alam po niya yung mga yung allocable ng mga lawmakers po natin. So gaano kalaki po ang impact ng kanyang pagkawala at bakit kaya hindi po siya binigyan ng security? Kung ganun po ka-central po ang kanyang role.
Well, alam mo kasi, Gretchen, probably I had the time to interview him prior to the hearing kasi nakiusap ako kay Chairman Reyes na kung pwede kausapin ko muna siya in private para at least to fire her up para sabihin niya to tell all. Pero karamihan talagang denial lang siya. At pag naiipit na siya, wala na siyang ginawi kundi turo si Secretary Bunuan. In fact, ako yung nag-raise dun sa allocables because I have all the... And I showed him several numbers. Tinanong ko sa kanya, una-una ko nga binanggit sa kanya why is it that you're perceived as the most powerful user in DPWH that you're even capable of countermanding the orders of your boss? Sinabihan ko siya. Siyempre, denial siya, hindi naman po sir. Can you come up and come closer to this board and I'll show you some numbers, this chart. Pinakita ko sa kanya yung mga numbers doon, showing yung mga allocations ng mga iba't ibang mga congress. Bigla siyang nanginig. Nag-stammer siya, humingi siya ng tubig, and while drinking water, nanginginig siya. At at the end, sinabi ko sa kanya, who's responsible for this? Are you not supposed to be responsible for this being the planning officer? And immediately sabi niya ako na wala na siya may rason. Sabi niya, si Secretary po
So now, how do you think can we piece together her part in the investigation? Knowing na siya po ang makakapagturo, kailangan po si Secretary Bonoan. Si Secretary Bonoan lang ba ang pwede?
Well, lagi niya tinuturo si Secretary Bonoan. And of course, yung mga in charge doon sa BICAM, who are those responsible na lawmakers to sa BICAM, because very glaring. For example, yung NEP ni Congressman Tariela, sipin mo, dapat yun 20 billion. Ang NEP niya. After the BICAM, naging 20.9 billion. Yung kay Panaligan, ang net niya is 1.5 billion. Tapos after the BICAM, naging 20.7 billion. At maraming ganun pa na nangyari. Hindi siguro kasing laki nung nakita ko doon sa Mindoro na 20 billion. Pero may nakita ko dyan. Ang mga net dyan, 5 billion. Tapos ang naging, after the BICAM, naging 12.9 billion. Nangyaring ganyan eh. Kaya sabi ko sa kanya, what is the basis of the increase? Sabi ko sa kanya, and why did you allow it? What is the absorptive capacity of these district engineers? Are they capable of, carrying out a 20 billion project in a year time? Wala, hindi niya. Katapos, ang sagot na niya sa akin. Sabi niya, sinita rin siya ni Secretary Babes. Tinanong din siya ni Secretary. At dahil sabi niya, turo lang niya. Si Secretary po eh. Kaya, walang indications whatsoever that she's willing to, during the time na in-interview namin, because that was the first interview, there were no indications whatsoever that
That she wanted to become state witness. Oo.
Hindi
Bilang
siya
panghuli
pwedeng
ho.
maging state witness.
Oo,
Hindi siya
bilang
pwedeng
panghuli
maging
ho.
state witness.
Bakit ho? Kasi napaka-central po niya. Hindi po ba siya ang pwedeng magturo?
Marami siyang information na dinala sa hukay. Pero I hope na kung ma-recover yung cellphone na yun, we'll be able to get a lot of essential, critical, sensitive information.
Okay. Mayor, pasensya na ho, wala na tayong oras. But thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you coming over to the show, and we'll probably have you in our other programs to get down to the truth. We have Baguio City Mayor Benjamin Magalong joining us on the road. Maraming salamat ho. And that wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. We hope we've given you the right start to your morning. Let's go ahead and make the day matter. My name is Gretchen Ho. Kapatid, we are One News, all sides, all the time.